Leadership is a characteristic trait that needs to be cultivated in people. So you're not necessarily qualified to lead, and you're not necessarily qualified to counsel people until you go through some kind of process of your own. That's just what I believe.
So I have a question. So when it comes to like people wanting to give spiritual counseling or advice, do you believe or feel or think that that is something you have to be called to do, or do you think anybody can do it as long as it's from their lens? Like, how does that work, and how would one know if they should be doing this?
So for me, I have a master's degree in pastoral counseling. So I'm just going to put that out there too. So my services are they're integration of spirituality and then the professional modalities of counseling. I do think there needs to be some kind of calling. And I'm gonna tell you why I say that, because I think I'm gonna get in trouble.
No, you're
Not
not.
with you, but see, I think a lot of people come into the spiritual space based on what I've observed since I've been in this community. And there's kind of this mindset that because I'm in the spiritual community that I have a right to now lead other people. And because I've been studying leadership all my life, leadership is all I've ever studied. Leadership is a characteristic trait that needs to be cultivated in people. So you're not necessarily qualified to lead, and you're not necessarily qualified to counsel people until you go through some kind of process of your own. That's just what I believe.
Okay.
So I think the calling is, yes, there's this internal voice, this internal feeling that I'm supposed to help people, and I think that's great. And that's part of the work I do in training life coaches, because a lot of people just want to be a life coach and think they don't need to be trained on how to do that. But anytime you're working with somebody else's life and you're working with somebody else's soul, there is a level of professionalism and training I think is required for that kind of work. So yeah, there's a calling to it, but then it doesn't stop at the calling. If you're truly called, you should also be willing to invest in that calling.
Okay.
Does
Okay.
does that answer your question?
Oh, it does. It does.
Okay.
Because, sometimes you might feel that you are supposed to do something, but have you ever got that conflicting thought like, well, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm just putting myself in this position, or maybe this is the ego or whatever, yada, yada, yada. But, I guess even if there's some confusion, at the very least, if you do make a step forward, to kind of tie into what you were saying, you would invest in that. And then when you begin
Mhm.
to invest in that and see how that looks,
Then the
then you
clarity
would
comes.
know. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how the clarity comes.
Okay.
Understand in the spiritual community is that even in the spiritual space, we still have to learn how to recognize that voice, right? Because we do have multiple voices that speak within us.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about shadow work. And so you have that traumatized voice sometimes that's still speaking. You have that shadow work voice that's speaking, that inner critic. You have the ego. And then in the mix of all of that, you have that still small voice of the presence of the divine that's trying to speak through all that chaos. So I think even if you think you have a calling and you're not sure, before you step out, I think it's best to go and get some type of counseling for yourself and work through all of that, because you need to know for sure.
Yes.
Because if you ain't sure, that if you don't know that you know that you know, you don't need to be helping nobody else right now.